Hi, welcome back to week 3 of What They Don't Tell You About Transplants. My name is Monty Rifkin. I'm a recipient of a heart and kidney transplant, and just over 2 years ago, and I'm feeling pretty good. I'm writing this more from an emotional and sociological perspective than from a medical perspective, to which I want to say that this podcast is based strictly on my own opinions and experiences. It does not represent medical advice of any kind. I'm not a medical doctor and don't intend for any of the information portrayed here to replace actual medical service. It's for entertainment purposes, and any information received is shared exclusively for that purpose. I encourage you to write me, and I'll be happy to respond to your questions, anything that I don't cover in the course of the 21 episodes that'll be on here. Feel free to ask, and if you want to write me, the email address is organtransplantmonte, MONTE, @gmail.com, and I'll be happy to review anything you send in. So welcome back to week 3. This is called Preparing for Your Transplant. And I'm not talking about the assessment where they run 32 tubes of blood to make sure that they can find an appropriate match for you and all of that kind of stuff. It's more about how to psychologically get ready to accept somebody else's organs inside of you. It is a responsibility in a sense. Don't forget, somebody sometime had given their life for you, and that, in a sense, means that you want to respect their memory. At least it did for me. So that's kind of where I'm going with this one, and we'll talk a little bit about it. Last week, we covered when you find out you have a certain amount of time to live and that you need the transplant. And that makes it problematic because you have to actually prepare at that point psychologically for what it's going to be like. And you might be on the list for a very long time. I think they're trying to work on that. I was completely blessed. I got my organs after only a month on the UNOS list. And when we get to that episode, I can kind of explain what happened to facilitate that. But for right now, let's talk about you. You've been told that you need a transplant or more, and you've got a certain amount of time that you don't know what it is. You've got to prepare. The minute they tell you that you need that transplant, and you do your research and you're getting your head around it, you need to start planning for the things that'll be happening to you over the next several weeks and months. You're going to have a lot of different tests done. You're going to have a lot of different medical consultants telling you the things that you need to do, what to eat, how to act, what not to do. Don't put yourself into piles of germs, things like that. In another episode, again, we'll talk about the new life after your transplant, where you're not going to have an immune system. I don't. I take immunosuppressants every day so that my body doesn't reject my new organs. On the other hand, I have a 32-year-old heart and kidney inside of me, and I feel much younger than my age. So that's a positive at the end of the day. It's a hassle taking all the pills every day, 17 different prescriptions, but it's worth it. I'm alive. I love my wife. I've got a family. It's all worth it. So psychologically preparing after they tell you, your initial shock is going to wear off eventually when they tell you you need a transplant. At that point, and you're doing your research, studying what you need to know about your transplant, and as much as you can digest in information, the more it'll help you. You're going to find sometimes competing information that's out there. They don't tell you about this, by the way, and that's the title of this podcast. If you find competing information, try to get a second or a third source on it to see who breaks the tie, basically. You'll find that most of the information is pretty concurrent. It's all pretty much the same, but there are variations depending upon the facility, the type of the transplant, the nuances of the transplant particularly. Different organs have different requirements. So there may be a lot of things you have to accommodate. In my case, it was making sure that my dialysis ran in sync with my heart transplant for my dialysis for the kidney. So it was comprehensive. Also, I had to get used to the idea I only will have one kidney, and that's typical in transplants. You only need one. By the way, it's fabulous. It works like the fountain of the gods at Caesar's Palace now. And it's great to be off dialysis, which was a horrible experience. But now it's all better from that perspective. However, my kidney is now in my gut. It's in my front, and it's located in my lower right abdomen. And I'd show you the scars, but it's not worth it. Just believe me. There's one kidney in there. Now, kidneys aren't too hard to transplant. So let me assuage a little bit of the anxiety that goes with that. Kidneys require a vein, an artery, and a urethra. So what it is the blood comes in, artery, and it's oxygenated and has all kinds of stuff in it. The kidney cleans that. It takes the junk it cleans out and puts it through the urethra, and it comes out in the form of urine. Then it takes that cleaned blood out, puts it into the vein, and sends it back to the heart. Okay, for redistribution, so to speak. So that's kind of what the function of the kidney is. So you can tell, based on that, it's not an easy procedure, but it could be a lot worse. The heart, for example, takes an enormous amount of care and attention to details that the kidney doesn't necessarily require, but when it's in the front, there's an awful lot of organs in your right abdomen. So they do have to be careful, and any procedure they have to be super careful with. So you'll be getting used to things like sterile environments. The best thing for you to do is not freak out. Just understand that it's a process. It's been done thousands and thousands of times. And if you do your research, you'll be in a good facility. You trust that the doctors will, be able to read the assessments carefully, and that there won't be any surgical mistakes on the table. And that's the best you can hope for. The alternative is worse, trust me. So that's the type of anxieties you'll be facing when the time comes. Now, let me just explain the call briefly. Again, we'll talk more about that later. Different episode. The call is when you get your call after you've been on the list, and they say, we have an organ ready, or organs, and it's time to come to the hospital. At that point, you should already have a bag packed. Hopefully, it's already in the car. You get in the car or on the plane, or however you're managing to get there. I don't recommend scheduling a commercial flight to get somewhere when you're dealing with the call, because you're at the mercy of the schedule of the airlines, which could also be at the mercy of the weather. And you do not want the weather interfering with you getting a heart, a kidney, a lung, a liver, etc. The weather is unpredictable to that extent. So always have your own method of handling that ready. So the anxiety. Talk to yourself a lot. Make yourself realize that you'll need to do this in order to live longer and to be there for your people. Or you may have another project in mind or something you want to do. There are a number of coping skills. They're out there. You can Google those and find them. There's some things that you might want to try to help yourself once you've established that you need this and you're just waiting for a long time. I did some yoga for a while. I found it relaxing, peaceful. It helped me cope somewhat with the stress of knowing that if I didn't do this, I wouldn't be here today. I also tried some different relaxation methods But mostly, when I talk about that, I'm not endorsing any one kind of, special thing that you do that's going to make it all better. You're going to figure it out for yourself. But most important is that you do figure it out for yourself. Sitting down and just taking time for yourself to rest and to relax. And even if you talk to yourself about it, sometimes you'll say something that'll, wow, why didn't I think about that first? It does happen, unusually. So there's things that'll come to you that you didn't really think about. And it'll make you rest a little bit. What you're looking for here is emotional and mental peace. Something so that you can make it through the next 5 minutes without flipping out that you need to put somebody else's organs in you. It's a big thing. But they do it all the time now, fairly commonly. There's other things that come into play if you have any other kinds of maladies or issues going on, and those could be problematic, but every case is different. But at the same time, it's gotten to be a procedure. And for that, I'm very thankful because it took a lot of the pressure off knowing what was going to happen. Listen carefully to what the surgeons tell you, the doctors. And, the APRNs are very smart too. They're basically doctors that don't do surgery. And that's nurse practitioners, by the way. They're the ones who can help you through a lot of this. Now, wherever you're getting your transplant referred from your specialist, your nephrologist or your neurologist or your cardiologist or your liver doctor, whoever it happens to be, you'll want to ask them for a case manager and a social worker. The case manager is instrumental in finding you other sources, other resources of help. They'll hook you up with a pharmacist. They'll hook you up with other specialists that might help you with things that are happening within the course of you having to get these transplants. You may need to speak with a dietitian. In my case, I have diabetes type 2. And that's problematic too, because once you get a kidney transplant, you have to be on steroids, and probably for a number of other transplants as well. And you will be on them for a long time. Well, steroids don't do a thing for helping you lose weight. Let me tell you, they make you gain weight. And the purpose of the steroids is to prevent organ rejection. So you must be on them. Now, the dose can vary. Depends on you. And it depends on your weight. But if weight is an issue for you, or you are a type 2 diabetic, then there's going to be medications that you need to take in conjunction with all of the transplant medications. And your doctors will know that, and they'll recommend things. And the dietitians will help as well. They'll tell you things you never expected to hear. Things like, don't drink tea if you've had a kidney transplant. Who knew? Well, the reason that the tea is not acceptable is tea is typically a dark liquid. And dark liquids typically have a form of coloring. Even natural teas have coloring. And they're not good for new kidneys. So you're going to want to stick to mostly clear liquids. So I find myself drinking a good deal of water now, and sparkling water occasionally. And, you can have a cup of coffee in the morning still. That's not out of bounds, I guess. I actually had my nephrologist tell me that. Of course you can have coffee. She said. Something fell. But it's okay. So in dealing with these kinds of nuances and the things that come along that are different and unusual and that you've never experienced before, and there's going to be a ton of them, the best way to accept them is to look at them and say, these are the things that I agreed to in order to make myself better. And I am getting better. It's a lot of positive reinforcement. There's a lot of people out there, your support groups even, who may not understand what you're dealing with on this. And I went through that. At first it was mind-boggling. How can you not know, But later on it became more commonplace, I guess. And then it became easier to tell people what was going on if they were open to it, or just simply taking care of myself, as it were. Because at the end of the day, this is for you. And it's important. So getting rest, staying as comfortable as you can. If you get a case manager, they'll be able to help you with all those other resources. There is no issue in asking for help with depression. Depression happens. Anxiety definitely happens. And I was never really prone to all that, but I've learned, and it's not wrong to ask for help. Ask for a social worker from your case manager, and that person will direct you to resources that can help you with mental therapy, as far as if you want talk therapy, or if you feel you need medication to help relax from some of this. And your doctors can guide you as far as the interactions, and the pharmacist will guide you as far as the interactions with the medications that you must take prior to, perhaps, and then during, recovery from your transplant or transplants. And those are the major issues. So the lesson here, if you will, from me, just my own opinion, do what you have to relax once you're told you need a transplant, whatever that may be. Video games can work. Reading. Find a hobby. Do something that takes your mind off the immediate possibility of failure in your transplant. Yes, risk exists. It is what it is. But by and large, mostly they're successful. And you want to go into it with that nature. And you may want to have a plan for what happens when you get better. My wife and I went to see the kids up in Canada, and that was our celebration of sorts. So those kinds of things will help you strengthen your spirit to go through this kind of thing, and that's what we're talking about here. If it feels right, try some relaxation exercises. You can find thousands of them on Google. I'm not going to recommend any, but look up relaxation exercises or stress relief exercises. And they're not hard. They're not things you have to do every day and, focus on and do this. It's more sequester yourself. Take a few minutes for yourself. Think about you. Think about you, what matters to you and makes you a better person. And focus on those kinds of things. And you'll find that eventually you'll be calmer. It'll be easier to focus. And when your doctors are telling you things, you'll listen better. And that's truly important. Always have your caregiver with you, just in case, but make sure that, you do things to take care of you. So other than that, make sure you get a social worker, because your social worker will get you any specific help you might need in terms of therapies, and could also make recommendation to the pharmacy to get you medications. And if it's appropriate, and if it doesn't have interactions with the drugs that you'll need to take through this process. And that's basically it. It's a simple thing to do, but they don't tell you about it, and I wanted to make sure you knew. So if you have any questions, or if there's anything that I can do to try to support your efforts, feel free to reach out to me. My email here is Organ Transplant Monte, M-O-N-T-E, at gmail.com. And the podcast is called What They Don't Tell You About Transplants. Next week's episode is going to be on the role of the caregiver. Very important episode, by the way. I'll try to post it on Thursday. Please come back, and I'll tell you about it. The caregiver is the single most important person in your transplant team other than you. So thanks for watching today. I appreciate it. Again, my name is Monty Rifkin, and I'll look forward to seeing you again next week. Live long.